Gentlemen, this message might just change how you see love, money, and yourself forever. Don't click away. Watch till the very end, because one sentence in this video could shift your entire mindset. Comment where you're watching from. Let's see our global brotherhood. And if you feel this message, subscribe and join the movement. You see, most men are in a hurry to give their hearts before they've even given themselves a solid foundation to stand on. They chase affection before they've built identity. They want validation before they've earned self-respect. But the truth is, a man who hasn't yet discovered his purpose has no real business-seeking partnership, because what will he bring to the table except confusion and emotional dependency? When you haven't built yourself, you end up clinging to love as a form of escape instead of connection. When you begin to focus on building yourself, your mind, your mission, your money, your discipline, something incredible happens. You stop chasing and you start attracting. The energy of a man grounded in purpose is magnetic. He doesn't need to convince anyone of his worth. His actions do that for him. He's not desperate for attention. He's devoted to progress. And ironically, that's what draws the right kind of woman toward him. The one who respects his direction, not just his desire. So many men think love will fix their emptiness, that a woman will bring them peace. But peace doesn't come from partnership. It comes from alignment. A woman can complement your growth, but she cannot create it for you. If you hand her your unfinished self, she can only work with pieces, not purpose. Relationships thrive when two whole people meet, not when one person is trying to fill the holes the other refuses to face. Building yourself first isn't about arrogance. It's about preparation. It's understanding that love is not a substitute for self-mastery. You don't have to be a millionaire or have all the answers, but you must have a direction. You must know what you stand for. A man without purpose becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability in a relationship breeds insecurity. But when you know where you're going, you give her something to believe in. You become her sense of safety, not because of what you have, but because of who you are becoming. Every hour you spend improving yourself, every book you read, every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're building something that no one can take away from you. Self-respect. And when you carry that kind of energy into the world, love finds you differently. The wrong women will be intimidated, the right one will be inspired. The difference is that one sees your value as something to consume, the other sees it as something to protect. Focus on your path, and you'll start noticing that the people who once overlooked you now start to admire you. Not because you changed for them, but because you finally started changing for yourself. That shift in focus is what separates men who chase temporary affection from those who build lasting legacy. And the truth is, when you elevate yourself, the quality of love you attract elevates too. You stop settling for anyone who doesn't match your energy. You stop entertaining chaos disguised as passion. You start seeing love not as an escape, but as an extension of who you already are. That's when you realize love isn't supposed to complete you, it's supposed to complement your completeness. So if you take anything from this, let it be this simple truth. Before you give your heart, build your foundation. Become the man who doesn't need love to feel whole, but whose wholeness makes love meaningful. Because at the end of the day, the greatest gift you can offer any woman is the man you've worked hard to become. Money, it's one of the most misunderstood subjects when it comes to manhood and relationships. Some men worship it, others dismiss it, but few truly understand what it represents. The truth is, money itself isn't the goal, stability is. Money is simply the mirror reflecting your relationship with discipline, value, and control. A man who can manage his finances often knows how to manage his emotions, his time, and his life. And that's what creates respect, not the size of his bank account, but the strength of his foundation. Let's be honest, money changes things. It changes how you walk, how you talk, and how you see yourself. But what's even more powerful is how it changes what you tolerate. When you have control over your life, you don't beg for attention, you don't chase validation, and you certainly don't fear being alone. Because independence is the ultimate confidence. The man who builds his own stability doesn't need to impress anyone. His peace is his proof. Many men think if they just make enough money, women will love them. But love built on income fades the moment the income does. True respect comes not from what you earn, but from the mindset behind it. A man who understands money knows that it's not just a currency, it's energy. It flows to those who are focused, disciplined, and purposeful. That kind of man doesn't spend recklessly. He invests in his dreams, his growth, and his vision. When a woman meets a man who is financially stable, she feels something deeper than attraction. She feels safety. Not because he can buy her things, but because he's built a life that can support peace. Stability allows love to breathe. It gives the relationship space to grow without the constant pressure of survival. Without that foundation, even the strongest connection can turn into chaos. Love can't thrive where there's constant uncertainty. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. Money doesn't just reflect your stability, it reflects your identity. If you constantly feel like you're not enough, you'll spend to prove your worth. If you feel insecure, you'll use wealth as a mask for confidence. But when you're truly secure, money becomes just another tool, not a trophy. You stop trying to impress people and start using your resources to build freedom, impact, and legacy. And that's the kind of energy that attracts a woman who values substance over show. The kind of woman who respects you not for what you buy her, but for what you build with her. Because here's the thing, the wrong woman will drain your wallet, but the right one will multiply your wealth, not by what she brings, but by how she inspires you to grow. So the question isn't, how much money do you have? The real question is, how much control do you have over yourself? Because money follows order, it follows purpose. It follows men who can delay gratification and make long-term decisions without emotional chaos, the same qualities that make you financially successful, patience, vision, and discipline, are the same ones that make you emotionally reliable. That's why money isn't about greed, it's about growth. When you start seeing money as energy, not ego, you move differently. You stop chasing and you start creating. You begin to respect your time, your peace, and your power. And that shift changes everything. The way people treat you, the opportunities that appear, and the level of love you attract. Because when you're grounded in stability, you don't just look like a man of value, you become one. So don't chase money for attention. Master it for freedom. Don't use it to prove who you are. Use it to become who you were meant to be. Because at the end of the day, it's not the amount of money in your hands that defines your worth. It's the amount of control you have over your life. Every man, at some point in his life, faces a silent battle. The choice between purpose and pleasure. It's not a decision you make once. It's a test that life keeps presenting again and again. Pleasure whispers to you through distraction, through temporary validation, quick comfort, and fleeting affection. Purpose, on the other hand, demands patience, sacrifice, and delayed gratification, and most men, sadly, trade their long-term destiny for short-term dopamine. You see, pleasure is easy. It's the text you shouldn't reply to but do. It's the weekend wasted instead of invested. It's the satisfaction of now, paid for by the regret of later. Purpose is different. It's uncomfortable, disciplined, and often lonely. It asks you to stay focused when everything around you tempts you to drift. But here's the truth, a man who learns to master his impulses becomes unstoppable. Because power doesn't come from control over others, it comes from control over self. We live in a world that sells pleasure as success. Social media glorifies the illusion. The cars, the attention, the girls, the lifestyle. But what it never shows you is the emptiness that follows when your identity depends on the next high. When you live for pleasure, you live in reaction. When you live for purpose, you live in creation. One consumes energy, the other produces it. And that's what separates the men who fade from the men who build legacies. Every distraction you entertain comes at the cost of your potential. Every time you choose pleasure over progress, you're teaching your mind to settle for less. You dull your edge, your focus, your fire. That's why so many men feel lost, not because they lack opportunities, but because they've been drained by meaningless indulgence. Purpose doesn't drain you. It fuels you. It gives every struggle a reason, every sacrifice a reward. When you have a mission, you don't chase women. You attract allies. You don't beg for love. You command respect. There's a psychological truth to this. Women are drawn to men who are driven by something beyond desire, because purpose gives you direction, and direction gives you power. A man chasing pleasure radiates neediness. A man walking in purpose radiates certainty. And certainty is the most magnetic quality a man can possess. When your actions are aligned with your vision, your energy changes. You become more selective with your time, more protective of your peace, and more intentional with your love. But this isn't about choosing between love and success. It's about choosing balance. Purpose doesn't mean isolation. It means clarity. When you're clear about your mission, you'll know what kind of woman fits into your life, not as a distraction, but as a partner. The wrong one will pull you off your path, the right one will push you further along it. Purpose helps you see the difference. Without it, you'll keep confusing attention for affection and excitement for connection. There's a philosophy that says, he who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers 1,000 men in battle. That's the real essence of manhood, the quiet mastery of self. When you can look temptation in the eye and still choose your path, that's power. When you can say no to what feels good now for what will build you later, that's growth. And when you live each day in alignment with something bigger than your desires, that's freedom. So if there's one challenge I want to leave you with, it's this: stop chasing what gives you moments of pleasure and start building what gives you a lifetime of peace. Because at the end of the day, pleasure fades, but purpose leaves a legacy.